First red dot I ever used was an Aimpoint 2000 on an M4 in SF. Now, fast forward, the unit started fielding them in like 2005, well, probably 6 or 7 overseas. That's what supercharged the whole thing. I've got dots with 50,000 rounds on them now. Dots have become so good. They're durable. They don't lose zero. The battery lives are great.
Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's good to finally meet you. People know you for your company, CTT Solutions, but what people may not know is your background and the experience that you gained from your unique background. I want you to talk about it because I don't know enough to talk about it, but I do know that you were a reconnaissance Marine, You were in U.S. Army Special Forces, and ultimately Delta Force. And at some point, you ended up medically retiring from Delta Force, and then you went on to become a contractor and do some security details and curriculum development, just a ton of stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in the military?
All right. I'll kind of touch everything real quick and won't digress really that much. Just actually, I've been around the planet a bit, so it'll take some. I started out originally as an infantryman and then into reconnaissance, which was kind of a secondary MOS. Now it's a primary MOS. 0321 used to be a secondary. My primary is 0311, which is infantryman, and then reconnaissance, and then additional special skill identifiers for parachute and scuba and all that. Then I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps. Then I went to Army SF as a 18 Bravo weapon sergeant, and then from there, spent some time there. The better part of a decade there, and then screened and was selected for SFOD for Delta. Went there, was an assaulter, and actually was injured in a breaching accident. A breaching charge fell and detonated in midair just as I fired it, and it took my right eye with it. So I medically retired from there just before the war kicked off. I got called by an old sergeant major of mine who asked me if I wanted to help stand up the Air Marshal program right after September 11th. So I helped do that in 2002 and 2003. 2003, I went to Iraq to do high-risk PSD in working out of Baghdad, and then I was there in 04 working out at Tikrit, and then in 05 I was in the asymmetric warfare group as a ground combat advisor in the Anbar province, and left there and was the senior instructor for Viking Tactics for Kyle, and left there a couple years later, 2 years later, 2.5 years later, and started my own company, and I've been doing that ever since. So that's kind of the crib notes of it. I was the things that kind of have been very formative for me is I was there when we stood up the reconstituted Air Marshal program. I was there as the first project manager hired by Triple Canopy when we stood up Triple Canopy. And then I was there when Kyle Lamb was setting up his business. I was at his retirement and then helped him set up his business. And then I was there when we set up the asymmetric warfare group. So I've been kind of in a bunch of stand-ups early on, helping develop curriculum and stuff like that, which was super helpful going forward on my own.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that background that you have is amazing. Were you a shooter before the military?
I love to shoot, but I wouldn't say outside of clays. I shot skeet a ton. I actually went to boarding school. I know you can find it hard to believe, probably people would. I went to a fancy all boys boarding school. My parents basically, drained their blood to send me away to get a good education, which in spite of myself, I really did get. So, which is kind of cool because when I went to college, I already had a better education than they were trying to give me coming out of prep school.
Impressive. Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, so I shot clays there. I loved it. I've always loved to shoot. I've always been into shooting and loved it. And it just, as when I went into the military, it just kind of fostered that.
Yeah. And you've been involved in high risk operations basically all over the globe. Mm-hmm. It's hard for you maybe to put yourself in someone else's shoes who doesn't have the experience that you have, mm-hmm. because that's all you know is your experience. But how do you think your experience gives you a particular insight that a lot of others instructors who don't have the type of experience in the background that you have, they may not understand things? It may be more theoretical, whereas what you know is practical.
Experience is a lens that you look through that brings things into focus. So I look at something and I see it through experiences that are comparable, or through basically a template that I've used to evaluate things. Okay, and I posted it before. I have it in my classes. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? How does it work with specificity? Okay, the mechanism of success, so it's repeatable. How much time do we have to do it? Okay, what are the most likely failure points or mistakes? And then how do we structure training to avoid those? And how do we remediate those if we make the mistake? But you've got to start with, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How does it work? How much time? If I don't know what I'm doing, then I have to stop there and figure it out. If I don't know why I'm doing it, I got to stop there. If I don't know exactly how it works with specificity, okay, it's a math problem. If I do the following steps, it will produce this. I have to have that to start from. That doesn't mean that the technique or the plan will go that way, but it means I have a logical framework for it. And then how much time? If everything, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? How does it work? I have enough time. I don't have enough time. Then it stops right there. I just can't do it. I don't have enough time. And that's some of the stuff that I see. Just finished doing a vehicle block. I see that big time with the vehicle space. Two things that I see with that. One, you see a bunch of people dancing around inside the car, shooting left, shooting right, shooting through the windshield. That's all cosplay. That's LARPer cosplay. None of that is realistic, because it's what are you doing? Obviously, you're trying to counter a threat. Why are you doing it? Because you don't want to die. Got it. Okay. How does it work? I'm shooting from inside the vehicle. Well, that's kind of problematic. How much time do you have? Okay. And this has been every one of the classes. If Force Science Institute talks about a suspect shooting more, like well under 20 splits, like 15 to 17 splits, and when they just empty a magazine at somebody. Okay. We just go with 25 splits, 0.25 shots or 0.25 seconds per shot. That's 4 shots per second. Okay. The start signal is boom. So that's 0. So the first second is 5 shots. Okay. To draw a pistol inside of a vehicle and fire a shot is, if you are sporty, is about 2.5 seconds. And that's when you're waiting for a timer and you're not being aggressed. Okay. So now let's say absolute best case scenario is 2.5 seconds. Best case scenario. Okay. That's 10 rounds plus the start signal, which is boom at 0. That's 11 rounds while you're trying to accomplish that task. That is unrealistic. You do not have that much time. And then experience tells you, if you are the subject of, we'll just say, a hasty attack, so you've got kind of a second to see it coming, the first thing you're going to do is get out of the way of the bullets. You're not going to do all that fancy gee whiz Instagram, stuff. You're going to try and get out of the way of the bullets because you realize you're in a bad spot. If you're ambushed, an ambush is a surprise attack on an unsuspecting victim from an undisclosed or unexpected location by an unexpected individual. Like, you have no idea you're flat-footed, and that's why I say all the time, it's a sucker punch with a gun. These are things, and the reason I say these, and I give the foundation for people listening, when you have experience with these things, you recognize what you can and can't do. Okay. And simunitions is a way that you test, maneuver things and getting people in the right spots and all that. It's not the same as real bullets. People act very different when there's real bullets flying around. When mistakes are gunshot wounds, people act very differently. They're not nearly as cavalier. Okay.
Yeah. No
Everybody's
kidding.
joking and, backslapping on the simunitions. Like, oh, you shot me in the head. Oh, you got me. Like, oh, you shot me in the ass. Well, guess what? You just got your pelvis blown up by a 7.62 by 39 round, and you're bleeding to death. Like, that's I see it. You got shot in the ass. Like, oh, I got shot in the ass. Ha ha ha. I look at it and go, you died. We can't save you. That probably blew up your pelvic socket, and now we can't pinch off all the artery. Like, you're going to bleed to death. So I see it differently, and so I start looking at, like, what is a way that we can accomplish certain things based on what I know can and can't be accomplished in previous things that I had, that I've been a part of. And so the experience allows you in certain circumstances to innovate. Lack of experience only allows you to replicate. It only allows you to replicate with somebody else. And so, and if you're going to replicate, you can't freelance it at all, because you don't know. You just don't know. And so that's why when we talk about, you look at some of these, Instagram we've hijacked Instagram as a medium for knowledge in the shooting world and the tactics and all that world. Okay. We've hijacked it to use it to transfer knowledge and for marketing and all that. But the bulk of social media is entertainment. All right. You see, look how much genuine information that you can get from the shooting space and from, certain people that are teaching tactics. I know my buddy Matt from X-Ray Alpha and stuff, people putting out good information on tactics, or Ben Steger on shooting, or Hwansik Kim on shooting, or there's people out there doing good stuff. Okay. Now take that and juxtapose that with the amount of super hot chicks in workout gear or bikinis.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a drop in the bucket. It's not even a drop in the bucket. It's a tenth of a drop close by the bucket. Okay. So when you look at the medium skews super hard towards entertainment, and it pulls a lot of people there. And then the marketing piece is like, let me show you cool stuff with flashy music, with cool camera angles, shooting through the windshield, shooting out the door, shooting, doing cheetah flips and shooting stuff one-handed. And people look at that who don't know, and they're like, wow, that's so badass. And you can look at it in the comment section. It's like, it's badass if you have no idea what you're looking at. It is. But when you know what you're looking at, you're like, that actually sucks. Honestly, that's trash.
There's a quote, Mike, on your website it's freaking awesome, and it speaks to what you're saying there. Marksmanship is marksmanship in application, not in isolation.
Yeah.
I mean,
marksmanship is a component skill.
Perfectly stated.
That's a component skill. Okay. That's done in isolation. Okay. A deadlift is strength in isolation. It's not playing football, but every football player deadlifts. Okay. You got to be good at deadlifting to have the power, to have the acceleration, the explosive power. But it's not football. Deadlifting is not football, but it's necessary to build the skills for football. Okay. So it's like people, we look at generally, when I say we, the general shooting public, outside of people that shoot competitively, that really have dove into the shooting part, we don't look at the shooting side the way we look at just sports in general, and we should. Okay, the application of marksmanship can be different based on your requirements, but the shooting part is the shooting part. It's just shooting. It's putting, little BBs with kinetic energy where you want them to be. I'm trying to get rid of this so it's not as bright. Sorry about that. And so we're not as intellectual or educated as consumers in the broader picture as we should be. And
well,
you
that makes sense.
You can get sold snake oil.
Yeah. And to be skilled at shooting, like you said, shooting is shooting. And then your application of that will depend on whether or not you're military, you're law enforcement, or you're a private citizen, because there's different general goals for all of those things, right? Whereas,
yes,
depending on your rules of engagement in military, it may be to eliminate the enemy. Law enforcement is to take into custody, and citizens, you want to break contact, Yeah,
you've got use of force. You've got use of force requirements and guidelines for law enforcement. You've got rules of engagement for the military, and you've got, legal obligations as a private citizen. Okay. And so but whether, if you are the same person and you're a reserve military guy, you're an active duty cop, and you're a civilian, that's you wear all those hats. You're out with your wife and kids. There are different requirements on what you can and should do than there are when you're a cop. And if you get deployed and you're in a hostile environment, you're a reservist now. And when you're deployed, you're on active duty. Okay. Now you're a soldier in rules of engagement. Those are all different. Like every one of those, you could be the same person and have all those different requirements at different points in time. Guess what? The shooting's the same. If you have to actually deliver kinetic energy, it's all the same. The requirements are all the same. And I think that's it's something that's very much lost by a lot of people, because we hear it all the time with tactical shooting. Oh, I'm a tactical shooter, or tactical this or tactical that. Shooting is a component requirement of tactics that you may or may not have to execute in the conduct of solving a problem tactically. That it's not its own thing. There's no such thing as tactical shooting. There's tactics that include or do not include shooting. And it seems to me like it's pretty obvious, but I'm obviously not completely correct about that when it comes to most people. They look at it as a special kind of shooting. An example, people they shoot and they scan and assess and they do all that stuff. It's a tactical kata. You're not looking at anything. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. So you're patterning yourself to move your body. Okay. Looking is directing your vision. Seeing is processing where your vision is directed. Okay. You're going like this and this. You're looking and seeing nothing, and then you feel good about yourself. And then it becomes a dance. As long as I go like this, I'm good. Like you're patterning yourself to look and see nothing.
And you're right. You are setting yourself up to see nothing, even if something is there, because all you're doing is turning your head. You're not trying to see what's a threat. No, that's hugely important. As far as experience, and there's different levels of experience, right? So I was a police officer for a long time, part-time SWAT team and stuff like that. So I have a certain level of experience, right? But compared to you, not very much experience. Some people
different. It's just no. I would stop you there. It's different. We have different experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
if fair, you view it, if if it's pertinent and you process it logically, experience is experience. It's knowledge. It's information that you had after you needed it that you now use to guide forward, to pattern recognize a comparable situation, and then process that and solve it even more rapidly and more effectively. So I look at it differently. The interaction that you have being a SWAT team member, things that you have to do, dealing with the general public and dealing with weird people and drug people and all that, it is unique, but it's super beneficial. So it's not, I wouldn't look at it as being more or less. I would look at it as we have our own unique experiences. And I would all but guarantee if we were just sitting down, drinking a beer, talking about things that we had seen or done, there'd be a ton of overlap because people are people and they act weird in the same ways. They fight each other in the same ways. And people that are angry, that are scared, that are, EDPs, emotionally disturbed people, they all have patterns, and you can see them you can see them in the conduct of your duties pretty much across the board, whether it's military or law enforcement guy, because you run into crazy people in the military too, out in weird countries.
Yeah. You said something else that is right on point, man, as far as like a lot of people, they don't want to stray from the curriculum. They only teach this. And whether or not you're in the class with all your experience, I'm going to still spend 45 minutes on the draw stroke, even though you don't need 45 minutes on the draw stroke. Maybe that 45 minutes would be better used doing something else that maybe there's a skill that you're lacking in. But when you don't have experience, like you alluded to, you don't know. You can't be creative. You can't tailor the curriculum to the students because you don't have that knowledge base to draw from. You just are a parrot of what you were taught by your instructor, and you don't do the critical thinking, and you don't have the experience, because it requires both. It requires experience and critical thinking, I think, to really be able to tailor the material to best meet the needs of the student. You can be experienced, but you're not perceptive as to what they need, or you can be you can look at things critically, but you just don't have the experience to make that critical thought really relevant.
I think that it's a hard one to kind of touch. It's kind of a third rail-ish, but not. You need to have, you need to have experience. But what you're doing takes intelligence. Good instructors are smart people. They're like, we look at it like a college professor that's really good is smart. You just assume if you're a college professor, the inference is that you're smart. I mean, that's not true nowadays sometimes, but we'll just say a good college professor is to be a good college professor and to instruct well. We'll put it that way. You take a course in college and the instructor, you're like, wow, I get it. He explains it so clearly, clear, concise, unambiguous, the whole thing. He's a smart guy because he has to understand not what he already knows, but how to get what he knows into your brain. Okay. When you look at it, somebody coaching a line of people and they're disparate skill levels. Okay. What you have to do, let's say there are a couple different skill levels. There's people that show up that are the equivalent of master or GM shooters. Then there's people that are the equivalent of, D class or C class shooters that are safe, but they're new. And then you've got your kind of middle of the ground, solid guys, B class, A class. I put it in USPSA terms so people can understand it, that are shooters in a percentage. GM is 95 and up. Okay. And you look at A class is 75% of a GM. Okay. So you've got these disparate levels. What you have to be able to do is identify what each person needs all at once. And then in your mind, craft a solution for each one of them, or a drill. I say a solution to that requirement, and then execute it individually, and then keep track of each one. And then remember what corrections you gave them the last time when you're dealing with 12 people or 14 people. And it's hard. It only comes with experience in the broader and longer sense, meaning more people and more time. And I started teaching people that professionally in teaching conscripts with a second grade education through an interpreter in 1993 in SF. Okay, so it's like I've got a learning curve. I've done everything that you can do wrong, and learned from it. But that's a hard, when you see every swinging Richard wants to jump in and put out a shingle, and I'm an instructor now because I'm a pretty good shot. It's like you're not an instructor. You're doing directed execution. You're just putting out drills and running people through drills. They could go on Instagram and pick up your drill and do it on their own. You should be making them better because you know more about shooting. And when you watch them, you know more about their shooting than they do. That's what's important.
Yeah, that's critical. I mean, I've seen courses that you got 50 students or something. I'm not necessarily knocking that, but
I will.
how much individualized attention will you get from that super high level, instructor who's very popular? I think some of the people, going back to entertainment versus training, they want to go there and they want to, they want to put their arm around Mike and get a picture with them and say, "Hey, listen to what I was doing. Check out what I was doing," as opposed to, a class where there's a reasonable number of students, whatever that may be, that you are going to get the attention that you just described. And also what you just described helps me realize and not feel so bad for, after teaching all day, man, I'm freaking mentally drained, because you're trying to keep track of, what does this guy need? What does this guy need? Am I fulfilling
Yeah.
everything that these people need? Not necessarily what they want, because sometimes they don't know what they need. I teach a lot of weapon retention stuff, and people, that's not sexy. It's not fun. People would rather shoot, but that's important. And usually when people get a taste of that, then they realize after the fact, maybe they signed up for the class for the close quarter shooting aspect of it, but then they realize, you know what? That weapon retention is something that could come in real handy, and something that I'm sort of lacking in skill in that area. So yeah, it's a lot, man. It's not just demonstrating, because demonstrating is the easy part of instruction. I think it's explaining, and you're right. It's being intuitive and understanding what the students need. And definitely the hardest part about being a firearms instructor, in my opinion, is being able to diagnose and correct other people's errors. That's not as easy as people think it is.
No, it's not. And on the back to at the beginning, we were talking about the people wanting to come out. Well, first of all, let's go all the way back to 50 people in a class. I see classes with 20 plus people with one instructor and like one or two assistant instructors. That is malfeasance to me. I could, I won't, because it's not the way to do it, but I could name a ton of people that are well known in the industry that do that have, 26 person classes. And that's not a class. Okay. One that's directed execution. You're just running them through drills to win your badge or your patch or your card or your coffee mug or whatever the freaking hell you give away to make somebody feel good about themselves unrealistically. Okay. But they're fleecing you. They're creating a social environment. This is social experience. You get to hang out with Johnny Punch Clock and take selfies with him and whatever. Whether you learn something or not is not really it. It's a social event, and he can stroke your beard and tell you you're wonderful and pat you on the bum, and you'll believe it because you want to. Okay, you're not there. People that go to classes that are that big, that should know better, should know better. Like you can't give enough instruction when you get past. I would say when you get past 16 students, to me, that's a big class for one instructor. 16, when you get past 16 students, now it's a logistics event. Now I'm just trying to make sure that I got a bunch of people with guns, that they all do, what I want them to do when I want them to do that in a safe manner. And it becomes more about safety and logistics than anything else. You bring a second instructor in with 16 people. Now you've got effectively 2 8-person groups with their instructor. Then we go back down to what it should be. But there's a lot of people that run giant classes. And anytime, anyone listening to this, saying it right now, if you're going to classes with 20 plus people and one instructor, or they have an AI who doesn't do anything, you're being ripped off. You're being ripped off. They are fleecing you. They're stuffing their pockets with money, and they're trying to entertain you for 2 days or a day or whatever it is, and then walk out and fatten up their bank account. It's true, because you can't teach that many people something of enough value that justifies what the cost was for them. You can't. I'm telling you right now. I will gladly get on Instagram Live or any venue and argue with that with them. There's just too many people. There's too many people for you to do that. And in these huge classes, and if you're paying for directed execution, which is I have a battery of drills and I'm going to run you through those drills over 2 days. Okay, then you can do that, but you're not getting your money's worth. Because the truth is, if you understand a little bit about training, you can get every one of those drills. Every one of us, everybody. Matt does from X-Wave, Ben does, Quantic does, Joel does. Everybody I know puts drills on YouTube and Instagram. You just go look around and go, oh, I want to do this drill. If you have a little bit of knowledge of how to train, you don't need to go to a directed execution class, because all you're doing is donating money to their new freaking bass boat or whatever.
Yeah. So it's and then Mike, to make matters worse, sorry to interrupt you, but the more people you have in class, the more likely you are to have a huge disparity between the best student and the worst student, which then that creates another dilemma for the instructor. If there's only one of you and you don't want the guy who's really skilled to be completely bored and leave with no new knowledge or skill.
Yeah.
At the same time, you can't leave the guy who's struggling in the dust. So you get spread too thin.
That's self-defeating.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about competition, because people might assume that based on your background that you might be like, competition shooting, But I think this goes back to what you said, that shooting is shooting. So talk a little bit about your experience as a competitive shooter.
I started the first USPSA match I shot was in the 90s in Washington State when I was in first Special Forces group. And then I shot a couple there, but we deployed so much that I couldn't. And then when I went to JSOC, we would bring in competition shooters. We brought in professional shooters to teach us: Rob Latham, Jerry Barnhart, Mike Voigt, rest his soul, Frank Garcia. At the time, a bunch of guys, they still do to this day. They routinely bring in professional competition shooters to help us refine our curriculum, or just to teach us new ideas, new things, just to see what's going on out there currently.
Yeah, and that speaks to what you're saying, that shooting is shooting. And so you're going to learn from someone who's the best shooter you can have, especially if you're on an elite unit like that, which you have access to all these guys, and you're going to learn from them. Like, are you going to learn, CQB tactics? Probably not from a competitive shooter, but you're going to learn what he's good at, which is shooting fast and accurately.
Yeah, they know that. And that's what they're told from the get-go, from the beginning. It's like, hey, teach us how to shoot faster and more accurate. That's all we want. We'll take care of the tactics, and that's not your lane. Your lane is, how do we shoot faster and more accurate? That's all. And it's been, the foundation of the shooting program at that organization came from professional sports shooters, all of them, all the way up to today, the ones that still go out there now. That's where we built that based on the highest performance shooters that we could get to come out and train with us. And it's like, you don't go to a bus driver, no matter how good he is, to learn how to drive a race car. You go to a race car driver. And even if you don't have a race car, but you want to be able to drive really good, you still go to a race car driver.
Yeah.
Okay. And so
that makes sense.
It's like, we did that, and we did with everything. We did with dirt bike, South African dirt bike racers. You had, parkour people. Like, you bring in the best at that particular skill, because that skill isn't the job. That skill is a requirement for the job. And so we bring in the best people we could to teach that. And that's all. You just teach this is what you do in this little tiny box. Teach us that, and we're going to pay you real well, and then you walk on. And that's back to the sports shooting side. That's where I really got exposed to the sports shooting side. And then after I medically retired, I shot in between, other things that I was doing. I would compete when I could. And then it wasn't until 2000 and probably 7, 8 that I started actually going, I'm going to try and do this. And one of my friends, Kelly Neal, who's a grandmaster, multi-division grandmaster shooter, super great guy. I think he's a judge now in Arizona. Awesome, awesome guy. I just was working with him and shooting with him. He's like, hey, listen, let me help you out. You're doing a couple things wrong. And the coaching part that I got from him wasn't about shooting faster. It was about doing everything else faster. And I got a bunch of really good wisdom from him. And I went from an A-class shooter in 1 division to a master class shooter in 3 divisions in 4 months. And it was all because of the coaching. And I learned a ton from Kelly. If he ever sees this, Kelly, I learned a ton from you, bro. Change the way I shoot.
I want to talk to you, Mike, about teaching, about skill building and things like that. There seems to be, I see this a lot on Instagram and stuff, and people make comments. It's like the more status somebody has, the more people they are taking shots at them. That's just the way it goes. It's ridiculous, but that's just the thing. People, they're quick to dismiss anything where an instructor talks about the crawl, walk, run approach, or the bastardized saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Okay, that's a whole other thing. We don't need to get into all that. But the bottom line is, there is a way that humans develop skill. And if you don't understand that methodology, you are not going to be an effective instructor or coach, even if you are the most highly skilled person on the planet. I have trained with some high level shooters that they're super skilled, but after training with them a little bit, and I do mean a little bit, in all fairness, I didn't train extensively with the guys I'm talking about. I walked away thinking, the guy's super talented, but I'm not sure he understands why he's so good. And so what you want as an instructor is someone who understands why they're good, right? They have to be, if a guy gets up there and demos a drill and he's a soup sandwich, then no matter how good of a coach he is, he has no credibility. But by the same token, you can get up there and boom, 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 burn them down. But then if you can't explain and coach another person to become better, then what's the point? So I would like to get your take on that. I'd like to get your take on that, on like skill development and everything else. And as far as a learning progression, like I would imagine you don't start guys out training, 100% when they're learning a new technique, right?
No, because you have to, the key when you're learning anything is you have to know what the right answer is. Okay. There's only one right way for you as an individual shooter. There are going to be variations on that for different shooters based on size and strength, ability, disability, gun type, hand size, whatever. Okay. But for each individual, they have to establish this is the right answer. This is what right feels like. And you can take it all the way down to a draw stroke. When your hand touches the gun, okay, before it leaves the holster, you should know definitively, I got a proper grip or I don't. I don't care how many versions of don't, it doesn't matter. There's an infinite number of wrong answers. There's only one right answer. Once you use that methodology, then you can isolate the correct answer and replicate it. There's a lack of understanding of how high performance people learn and how they're trained. And if you actually take some time and go to behavioral sciences labs and you read about Olympic coaching and stuff like that, you realize how they do it. It's very specific. It's very mathematical. And that's the key. Everything is broken down almost like a math problem. If you do the following things, mathematically, you will succeed. There's one right answer, and then there's an infinite number of wrong answers, which means I only have to remember one thing. When I'm shooting or whatever task it is, okay, I only have to remember one way to do it because that's the best way. The right way is the best way. Okay, every other way that's less effective is not the best way, so it's not the right way. But if you don't understand that and you don't know how to articulate that, that is a problem. On the demo, on like demoing, two things. One, you need to demo. You should, if you have a whatever it is that you do, okay, if you're doing shooting or you're doing jujitsu, I don't care. If you're teaching people how to freaking take jumps on a dirt bike, you have.
Speaking of jujitsu, Mike, Cecil Birch says hello.
Oh, tell him I said, hey, he's an awesome cat.
Yeah, I just started training with him. Yeah.
Great human.
Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries. You can always interrupt for friends. He's a great human. Love that guy. You have to demo, okay? And you have to demo at a high level. But don't get caught up in demoing at 95 to 100% of your capability, because invariably you'll screw that up. You'll screw up a demo in front of the students and then it looks bad. Okay? Ask me how I know. Like everybody does that. They want to freaking you get caught up and your ego gets ahead of you and you make a mistake and you're like, damn it, I could have done that 15% slower perfectly. And there's still only one guy in the class that when he shot it for the fourth time had a better time than me. But your ego gets the best of you and you learn that. I learned that years ago. To me, demos are done I do demos at 80%. Demos at 80%. Because I want you to see it done correctly. Two, I want you to see it done at what I consider a reasonable pace for the class. Okay? Because if I do it at flat speed, I go as fast as I can, then you're going to associate going this fast with success as opposed to the technique with success. I'm shooting this particular demonstration because I want you to do it this way, not necessarily this speed. And so like the emphasis is always, human nature is always to get like the sound. They associate sound with skill. And you see that in matches where people, they look at really fast split times and it sounds sexy. And at the end, the guy that seemed like he shot kind of slower, like beat the pants off the other dude who was shooting really fast splits, because there's a whole bunch of time in a shooting stage that you're not shooting. And you can't make up for it by 0.1 second, or 0.08 seconds on each individual target. You just can't. And
so 5 rounds a second instead of 4 is not going to make that up. Yeah.
So it's like that. And that's why you get people that when you demonstrate, you're demonstrating so the student sees the right way to do it, not for you to show off. Now, once everybody's shot, they're like, let me shoot this one again. That's kind of my MO. I shoot it about 80%, 85% maybe. Okay. And then when everybody's done, I go, let let me shoot this one at exploratory pace. I'm just going to go balls to the wall, see what happens. This is how you learn. And then you show them that one, it's okay to go really fast and make mistakes in training. And two, they've already seen the way it should be done correctly. And now they get to see your humility. You step out there and go, hey, sometimes it goes good, sometimes it goes bad. There are times that I've done stuff and I've gone, let me do that again. Shoot, that went too good. I need to go faster then. And I'll go faster and the wheels will come off. Then I'll turn around and go, that's why you keep going faster. If you went at a certain speed and it went perfect, then you got more speed in you. Let's see what it is. So there's a different mentality when you're doing that. Okay. But the first segment is tell them what you want them to do, show them what you want them to do, and then re-explain what you want them to do, and then watch them do it and coach them. And they see the proper way to do it. They see it at an appropriate pace. And then at the end, if you want to jump in and play a little bit because it's fun, do it. And then if you go as fast as you can and it goes perfect, screw it, go, damn, that went really well. I need to go faster.
Yeah.
You know, like, but it's one of those things that people don't, it's not an audition. That's the thing I tell people. If you're there, if I'm in front of a class, I already got the job. I'm not auditioning.
Yeah.
So like make them better. They should leave and they should be happy with the value they got from every bullet, every dollar, and every minute, especially every minute, because they can't get that back. That like you gave me some of your time. I better have given you something in return that was worth your time.
Yeah. You mentioned humility, and there's a lot of humility for someone that has your level of experience, yet you're willing to go and kind of risk embarrassment or whatever to do competition shooting, which is, you're highly skilled at the tactical stuff, but you're not afraid to try something new. And I think that sometimes that fear of looking foolish is a hindrance to law enforcement or maybe military folks as well. It prevents them from really delving into the competition shooting because they don't want to look bad. And you mentioned simunition earlier, and that's another thing too. One of my mentors, Dave Spalding, teaches several different classes, and one of them was he wouldn't call it force on force, but I can't think of the right term he uses now, but it's essentially a simunition type class. And he says that was the most canceled class. The class would fill up right away, and as it got closer to the time, I have a family emergency, I have this, I got to work, all this stuff, because people realize that I'm going to potentially be exposed. You know what I mean? And people are afraid of that.
Yeah. That's human nature. I mean, the fear of embarrassment is, if you look in psychology manuals, people are more afraid of being embarrassed than they are of being injured. That social stigma of being embarrassed. And it comes from your ego. And it comes from going there. It comes from you assigning value to you via others based on your performance. Like, you got to be comfortable in your own skin. I'll go out there and I will shoot the way I shoot. And it is what it is. Like, hey, today this is all I had. Or wow, today this is what I had. Well, however it comes out. Like, I got a match tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a speed day. I'm going to shoot like my hair's on fire. And it's like, hey man, if I've got some mics or some no shoots or whatever, or if I don't, I'm going to learn something by doing that. And that is independent of what anybody else thinks. Because the truth is, what I've done is what I've done. What I haven't done is what I haven't done. Like, I'm not unknown. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I got a beautiful wife who I adore. I've got a great daughter. Like, I'm not interested in your validation, man. I don't care. I'm trying to do things because I want to do them. I am satisfied by doing them, and it helps me to pass what I learned on to others, because that's what I do for a living. But whether you approve or don't approve doesn't pay my mortgage. It doesn't like put gas in my truck. So I don't. You're a non-playable character in my life, you know. And so it's like people look at everyone as a playable character, and I'm like, oh.
No, it's cool too, because it's twofold. So you want an instructor who can demonstrate. If he can't demonstrate what he's trying to teach you, I wouldn't believe anything he said, because talking is one thing, but if he can't even do it, how's he going to help me to do it? But secondarily, you mentioned another thing, which I've been in classes with very skilled instructors. And again, they demonstrate at a reasonable speed and do all this stuff. But then they jump up there and they try to do some difficult stuff. And sometimes they miss. And sometimes you could tell that they get a little frustrated. And guess what? That's reassuring to me as a student. Like, okay, well, even this dude misses. So I don't have to beat myself up for 10 minutes because I missed a shot, you know?
Yeah, it's you show some humility and show some humanness. Like, yeah, like that happens. When you go fast, things happen. but you have to know how to frame it. You can't frame it in embarrassment. You have to frame it in learning. And that's what I said. I'll shoot, I will shoot a hard demo. Okay. And if I make a mistake, I'll go, obviously I went a little fast here. I'll explain my mistake. Every time I shoot a demo, I go, okay, come on here. Let's take a look at the targets. And they'll come down and I'll go, okay, on this, like, here's what I want. This one I did this one I did that. And I'm doing that to show them that I know where and when the mistakes happen. This was the third round after blah, 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 whatever it is. And I can tell them that. And what I'm presenting to them is a level of awareness. This is how aware you should be. If you don't know where something went when you're shooting, then you weren't aware. You're just pulling the trigger, making noise, feeling good about yourself. And so there's a method to it. I'm not just doing it because it's like performative. I'm doing it because it's of value to the student. And it doesn't matter if I threw around, it doesn't matter. That doesn't change my life as long as I use that to make a point that makes people better.
Yeah. Excellent. I think that the people that are of the train as fast as you can all the time group, the problem is they're only knowing if they made the time and if they did it right or not, but they're not able to isolate where potential errors were and how can you correct errors if you're not aware of them. So There is a time to practice slow. And of course, I think common sense tells me that when you're learning a new skill, you probably shouldn't try to do it full speed. You should understand the technique. Even going back to martial arts as a kid, when I would be learning different katas and stuff, first you learn the pattern, you perfect the techniques, and then you add speed. I think that's a good recipe. But there's people that would argue with you on the internet that, no, you can only, the only way to do it is to train full speed all the time. No, I think that's BS.
There's a misunderstanding in that because people have sexied that up and that's become their shtick. Just go fast. The first thing you need to do is know how it's done correctly. And like, okay, if I'm doing a drawn presentation, I'm doing a reload, I try and get simple things that are easy to digest intellectually. We talk on this. Okay. If drawn presentation or a reload, the two things that you're concerned with are route and drive. Route is the path that either the gun takes from the holster or the path that the gun takes back to being reloaded and the magazine takes to the gun. That's the route. The drive is the amount of energy you put on it. Those will vary based on the weight of a magazine, the weight of a gun, the holster. Like there are variables to that. That's fine. But I have to be conscious of what the route and what the drive are. And then those are the components of a draw or presentation. Once I understand those, then I can tell when I'm drawing or when I'm reloading if I made a mistake and why. The route was wrong or the drive was wrong. I put too much energy on it. And then you start to learn, if you practice reloads with just one dummy round on top of the magazine, that when you go to a match, you'll screw up every reload because the magazine weighs substantially more when it's full. Again, ask me how I know. Yeah, because I practiced that with just one round, a ton of reloads. I was getting these awesome, like super dope ass reloads. I'm awesome. And went to a match and I screwed up every single reload. And I'm like, what in the heck? And it was like the weight. And that's when I came up with the whole concept of route and drive. Drive is based on weight. And the goal is to put the proper drive on the item based on the weight of the item. Okay, so it's like that level of specificity you have to have first. Now, once you can replicate the route and the drive, you can do the task correctly and you know it, then you add speed in and you'll make mistakes. And once I know how to do it correctly, then I add speed. And then the speed will cause me invariably to make mistakes. It's just human nature. And so I remedy that mistake at speed. I don't slow down to fix the mistake and then speed up again. I go the same pace and see what I need to do to fix that. It's like if you go around a corner too fast, okay, because the line you took, you judge the apex wrong on a corner for you people that drive. Okay, I judge the apex wrong. Okay, eventually I'm going to have to do it and I slide off the road. When I want to learn how to take that corner properly, the final test is going the exact same speed. And then entering the corner, my entry and my exit have to be correct. But that's the only way that you fix that is at speed. You don't fix it going slower.
And you said something that's key right there, which is test. And going at speed is the way to test yourself.
Yes.
But going full speed all the time may not be the best way to learn or to build the skill, right?
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the only way to get faster is to go faster. Your body has to learn to go. It's like nobody gets faster at sprinting by not sprinting. It's like, and you have to give 100% of whatever you have, and then incrementally you get better. Okay,
Yeah.
if you are throwing throwing a baseball, a pitcher, he throws harder and harder. At a certain point, his exertion doesn't match the accuracy of the pitch. He has to figure out why. But he doesn't throw a faster fastball by throwing slow. Like everything, the patterns for athletic activity are all the same, and they apply to learning, shooting. I mean, it's like so. I think that people don't take an intellectual approach. A lot of times they go, I'm a pretty good shot, so I should teach. And there are people that teach substandard techniques that they've learned how to do really well and put their name on it. And it's like that's not the right way to do it. Nobody at the top professional level does what you're doing. Just because you can do it better than other people doesn't mean it's the right answer, because the people that are doing it better than you are all doing it in a very similar way, and it's different than yours. So I'm like, but that's the difference. That's the marketing part. I want to market my shtick, my thing. I want to market
Mm-hmm.
my persona. I don't and it's
Repackage this and give it a new
yes,
name. And yeah.
yeah. It's like and that's the problem in the industry is a good majority of the people are doing what they're doing for money and audience approval. Okay, everybody does it because it's a revenue generating endeavor. It's not a charity. I do it to make money too. But my primary focus is to make sure that the money I earned was worth it to the customer, to the client, to the patron. Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
just trying to get my hands in your pockets two at a time and then, hey, one and done, whatever. I want you to leave there going, wow, I got what I came here for. And
Yeah.
that to me doesn't include, being having some cool guy persona, having some like, oh, I'm this guy, or everybody's got their little nom de guerre or whatever. I'm like, dude, I've been called Noner since forever because Pannone is too long, and there's like always 10 mics on every sporting team or assault team or whatever I've ever been on. So everybody's called me Noner since the beginning of time. Like I don't have people call me Thor or some shit like that, or Zeus. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
stop it.
Yeah.
And you've got all kinds of, everybody's a freaking Spartan warrior or a samurai or a Ronin or whatever. It's like, dude, just stop it. Just freaking stop it. Just be you. Be whoever you are. Be Tom. Like I'm not. I don't. Like I said before, when it comes to this, I love the craft. I love shooting. I love learning about shooting. I love teaching it. I love helping people, get on their journey to places where I've gotten to, or maybe beyond. Like get better than that. I'm fine with that. But I'm not doing it because I want you to think I'm cool. Maybe I'm cool. Maybe I'm not cool. Who knows? I don't get to decide that. I just get to be me and see what happens. But if you're trying to do it, you're creating a persona, you're already dirtying up the whole process. Just be you and be more concerned with what you are bringing to your clientele than if they think you're a cool guy and they want to name their kids after you or whatever. I just think it tells me that you're insecure. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
people in there that are in the industry that are very insecure, and those are the people that are throwing dirt. And I've thrown some
Need
dirt. I have to say
validation
it.
from their students. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
I've
need
thrown
the
some dirt.
validation.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But and they throw dirt for the sake of it. I've thrown some dirt because people are teaching terrible stuff, and I've asked them to come on lives and talk to me, and they won't. They just block me. But it's not. I don't do it when I throw dirt. I say this will not work. What you are teaching will not work, and I'm telling you exactly why. If you want to talk about it, let's go on a live. And the response is to block me. So I'm like, that's what children do. And so when you're dealing with children, you expect childlike behavior. This is what it is.
Well, speaking of cool guy stuff, Mike, let's talk a little bit about gear. Um, you know, uh, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, that some people, they try to make a lack of skill into a gear problem. Like if I only had Mike's holster, I could shoot like him. If I had a comp on my pistol, I could shoot like him. If I had a red dot, I could shoot like him. Talk about, but at the same time, gear does matter. Gear matters. Like if you're going to put yourself in harm's way, you don't want to go there with an unreliable firearm or with a
Yeah.
multi-fit, flimsy ass holster. So gear is important, but probably not as important as as some of the other things that are less sexy and more difficult to acquire, like skill. But maybe you can talk about some of the gear issues. Maybe you could talk about like what you think is a good concealed carry gun. And I know there's so many variables, but just talk a little bit about gear. And also let's get into red dots, both for carbines and for
Okay.
pistols.
Okay. On the gear side, you're not what you're going to get with equipment. We'll just talk about guns. Holsters are like, that's just personal preference. People get whatever they want. Most of the gear that you wear for that is personal preference, and you don't need anything really fancy. Okay. And for the people that are watching this, and I did it for years, I had a bunch of the Black Hawk um, universal double stack magazine carriers that
Mhm.
just clip onto a belt. I had like four of those, and I had an old Blade Tech holster for a CZ. I was shooting a Shadow a SPO1 before the Shadow 2, shooting SPO1 or just tricked out 75 from CZ Custom. Um, and that basically changed the holster out. The pouches were the same. And I had an old rigger's belt that I got in the Marine Corps that I used to wear with these pouches that just clipped on and this old holster. And I went from A class to master in 3 divisions with that. And that was like, at the time, it was like $150 total investment, probably less than that. Okay. So I'm like, you don't need a fancy holster. You need time with that thing strapped on practicing. That's what you need. So the holsters, that the gear, like I just heat gunned because I'm going to go back to shooting CZs again, shooting my Shadow 2. And I have a holster that doesn't fit it's a really nice holster, but it didn't fit. So guess what? I bust out my heat gun and I freaking heat it up and I reform it and all that because I don't give a damn. It's a bucket for my gun. It's not going to change how I shoot. Now, a gun will change how you shoot at the really high levels. When you've got top competitors, they're all likely shooting very comparable guns as far as capability of the gun, because now we're talking hundreds of a second between first and second place. Okay. All the way at the bottom, the equipment's not going to make any difference. You can get a Glock, throw a minus connector in it, or an M&P, and you're fine. You're not good enough to tell the difference. Honestly, you're not. Don't buy a staccato if you're a brand new shooter going to shoot USPSA. Okay? Don't do that because you're putting a bunch of money in now that would be better served later. Like I said, get a Glock, get an M&P, get a Canic. Canic makes incredible out of the box guns. Get something like that and learn how to shoot properly, shoot some competitions, learn what you like, okay? And then invest in a really good gun. And a good gun, because people look at like staccatos or any of the 2011s, they're really expensive. They're a one-time expense. You buy it and you're done. Ammo is the big expense, ammo and time. And so the equipment is not going to make you better. You will get better by practicing, and that will give you a different perspective on what equipment you really like and want going forward.
Interesting. And as far as red dots have been around for a long time now. You can't. I do a lot of gun writing. You can't find a major firearms manufacturer that is not offering optic cut slides for virtually all pistols. I know you have a lot of experience with red dots, both on pistols and on carbines. Maybe talk a little bit about your experience and from the beginning when you first started messing with red dots till now.
Okay, the first red dot I ever used was an Aimpoint 2000 on an M4 in SF, and then had an Aimpoint 2000 or 3000, and then a Comp M, and then an EOTech at Delta as an assaulter. We got the first when they were a Bushnell hollow sight, the big long ones that had replaceable reticles and stuff. We had those. We were the first squadron that fielded those actually. So I go all the way back to that. The first pistol I shot with a dot on it was a 1911 with a J point in a dovetail mount in the back, and we shot a guy Dave Surfer and Kingpin. These two guys, I won't use their real names, but they were both unit guys with me. Surfer and Kingpin and I were shooting that, and we burned through. We each of us had one with a dot on. We burned through all three. We broke all three of them in like 200 rounds each. We're like, screw this is garbage. So
What time frame? What era was that? Like
99, 2000
okay,
time frame.
yeah.
So we're like, now fast forward, the unit started fielding them in like 2005, probably 6 or 7 overseas, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a little bit later, but I don't think so. And that's what supercharged the whole thing, because people started going, these are great, but they're not durable enough. And Trigicon stepped in and was like, hey, what do you need? They were working with them hand in glove to get that to where it is now, where it used to be 2,000 to 3,000 rounds and your dot was pretty much toast. I've got dots with 50,000 rounds on them now.
Crazy.
So
Yeah.
it's like, but that the dots have become so good that
Battery
they're
life is great now.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. They're durable. They don't lose zero. The battery lives are great. And there's 20 of them. I mean, I've shot. I've got an O sight, the battery version, and I've got an O sight, the rechargeable version. Battery version is on a 40X that's got well over 5,000 rounds on it. And I found if a dot doesn't die in 2,000 rounds, it'll be fine. Been it hasn't lost zero at anything. So you got that O sight is $165 on Amazon shipped to your freaking door. Like
Wow.
now you're competing with that. I've shot a bunch of Siley optics. I've got a bunch of Siley optics on both rifles and pistols. They work great, and they're super inexpensive. They're almost all of them are under $200, and they work great. I have no like I'm agnostic. People are like, oh, I'll only buy this or only buy that, or those are they're made in China or whatever. It's like, hey, check it out, bro. If I didn't buy anything made in China, I'd be wearing a freaking grass skirt and bark slippers. Okay, so stop. The guy that
Yeah.
posted it on a Chinese built iPhone. Like, stop. I'm like I don't mix geopolitics with my equipment. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a different thing. But there's a ton of manufacturers. I've had great luck with the big names. The um, Trigicon and Loophole and Holliston. I've actually had really good luck, like I said, with Siley, with the O sites. So you know, there's so many people finally cracked the code. It used to be a lot of companies didn't know how to make reliable dots. Now everybody kind of does. And so, we're past it.
Have you had a chance to mess with the Aimpoint Koa?
Not in any meaningful way.
Okay.
I've seen them
It's
in shop.
interesting.
I'm actually trying to get one now on a Gen 6. I'm working on that.
Okay, cool. I mean, obviously they were a Glock exclusive for the first year. This year at SHOT Show, it was cool to go around and see the other manufacturers that have pistols with Koas on them. Smith & Wesson and Springfield Armory come to mind. I'm going to be, I have a 48, which is my carry gun, Glock 48 with an Aimpoint Koa. But now I'm going to be trying out an Echelon compact with a Koa, which you can get, right from
From Springfield.
So
Is that the
yeah,
comp?
so
Are you looking at the comped one or not?
it's not the comped one. It's they may have that, but the one I have coming is just a compact version, just the 4.0 C they call it, instead of the 4.0 C comp. But let's get your take on that too, brother. Like compensators, that's a huge thing on 9mm pistols now. Valuable or just
Absolutely
a waste of money.
Unless you're trying to make a division, like I did. I posted ballistic stuff with Winchester Ranger 147, which if you don't know, people watching, Winchester Ranger 147 and Winchester Ranger 1 are different ones. They're different SKUs, and they what do you call it? They are. You can tell the difference because inside the cavity, the hollow cavity, is a blue, like a blue
Like a polymer.
like a polymer kind of thing. That said, the Ranger 1 is actually hotter. It's probably 25 to 30 feet per second hotter on average. But that said, when I ran them out of a G17 or a G19, the difference was on average was about 10 feet per second. So the barrel length doesn't make, they're optimized for a Glock 19 length barrel, for a 4-inch barrel effectively. As far as shooting, if you run, like I've got a Glock 45 with a Rogue Customs comp on it, compensated barrel, the barrel extends like an eighth of an inch or a little bit more than an eighth of an inch beyond the slide, which is where the lugs are. You put the comp on, you turn it, locks in place in the lugs, and a roll pin goes through it. So it's actually slightly more than 4 inches. And my velocities are nearly identical to a Glock 17. But now I have a compensator, and the shorter barrel has a higher exit pressure, which makes the compensator work really well. Also, when I have an external compensator, I'm not changing the slide speed like a ported barrel does, because ported barrels, they slow your slide speed down because they're bleeding off energy sooner. There's a specific reason for it. And so that's an issue. Also, if you're anything closer contact distance, like Craig's stuff in ECQC and all that, which I've been to. Craig's a good friend of mine, another awesome human. If you got that gun tucked in and you're firing, a compensator will not give you the kind of blast that the ports will on top of the gun. So it's like I'm not. I've got a ported gun. I've got a couple ported, a 48 and a 43X, and I prefer the the external comp. Comps are the way to go. Unless you're trying to make a division in USPSA, why not? Why not shoot a comp gun? It makes a massive difference, even in 9mm. People used to think, oh, it doesn't make that much difference. BS. Go shoot them. I do. It makes a massive difference, and it makes a massive difference at distance. If you're shooting pairs at 10, who cares? It doesn't matter. If you're shooting pairs at 25, makes a huge difference having a comp.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And hearing your take on that as a very experienced shooter, both as a with your experience in the military and as an instructor and as a competitive shooter, I think that can tell people that may be hesitant that, yeah, it's valuable even if you are a skilled shooter. It could be valuable if you're more of a novice too, because it just helps mitigate muzzle rise to some degree. You know what I mean? And it's going to make it to where it's a little easier for you. And even if you're skilled, recoil still sucks, right? So as long as you can minimize that, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, for a newer shooter, actually, the biggest problem that newer shooters run into is recoil anticipation. And recoil anticipation is a timing issue. The gun goes boom. Initially, the gun goes boom, and it just kind of gets away from it, and you push it back on target. Over time, you connect this with pushing it. That's what recoil anticipation is. And so the biggest tripping point, like the thing that trips people up the most when they're learning how to shoot, is recoil. If you can minimize the amount of recoil, like people that shoot 22s don't have giant recoil anticipation issues. You ever notice that? Because there's like no recoil. It's like a video game. And so if you can remove as much recoil as you can remove from the shooting, helps a newer shooter. I just had a buddy of mine ask me, he's like, I want to get my wife a 43X. And then after, like, once she shot it for a while, maybe I'll put a comp on when she kind of graduates to that. And I was like, no, bro, you're backwards. Yeah. Get her that gun, get a comp barrel, make it as soft shooting as you can. And then if she likes that, okay, get her another larger gun with a comp on it, but don't go backwards. Don't, like, 43X is a completely different gun with a compensated barrel on it. Okay. The barrel is like, the company that I swear by is the Rogue ones, because they're not a ported barrel with a comp over it. They are an extended barrel that a comp lugs on the front. They're California legal and all that good stuff for you people that have 43Xs in California. They're as accurate as stock barrels, but they are super reliable because they do not change your slide velocity. Okay. They reduce recoil. They make that gun a completely different gun. My 43X has, like, within, I would say within 10 feet per second difference between my 48, but it shoots softer. And I shoot the same drills, and I'm 15% faster with that at 25 than I am with a 48. And I've got the same velocity. I've got the same ballistic efficiency. So it changes that gun. It changes how hard you have to hold on to the gun. Like, all of it. It changes the dynamics. For a little gun, I wouldn't be making those guns without some sort of compensation on it, real compensation, like something that truly is tested and works, not, a kind of throw it on there. It looks like a comp. But I'll tell you right now, those little guns, it changes the dynamic. Now I've got a 43X that's the exact same length as a 48. You can run 15-round shield magazines in it, or you can run 15-round Palmetto State mags with a polymer mag release. And I've got a little skinny, really good shooting Glock 19, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, they've come so far. I remember back when I was a new cop, we would carry like a 27 or a 26, which they were, the barrel was short and the grip was short, but they were fat, so when the thin line, 9mm became popular, they become so much easier to carry. And frankly, they feel better in the hand as well. At least for me with kind of medium-sized hands. So
a 26 only feels good if I put a +2 extension, which makes it a 19 grip with a shorter barrel. Like, why would I do that? It doesn't. Yeah. Now, that said, if I've got a Rogue comped barrel on my 26, and it changes that gun. And the big thing about compensated barrels is the shorter barrel has a higher exit pressure, which makes the compensator more efficient, gives you more compensating effect. So you shooting the same load and the same compensator on a Glock 34 versus a Glock 26, the Glock 26 will utilize that compensator way better. It will be not useless, but it will be far less effective on a 34, and it'll make the gun like freaking a yard long. Yeah. So it's like, when you start looking at compensators, you're looking at exit pressure, and exit pressure is driven by either some sort of, porting, or a shorter barrel or a higher pressure round, et cetera. So there's more. Competition shooters know this from guys that shoot open that have comps. You want a really high pressure round to make the compensator work better.
Yeah.
So again, the benefit of those shorter, of the 43Xs or 26s with a compensated barrel, is that they're super efficient. They make that gun different. Like, it shoots different.
Well, brother, you've given us so much great information, man. I appreciate your service to our country and everything that you're doing, all the good work you're doing as far as trying to help the good guys become better. Where can people go if they want to sign up for a class or if they want to find more information about what you're doing?
On the website, it's just www.ctt-solutions.com. You can send a message on there. You can look around. There's classes that are up there. On Instagram, it's just CTT Solutions LLC. Yeah, just there. I'm not unknown in that regard. If you want to reach out and ask about something, or if you got questions about something, I do a bunch of I have video clients that I deal with once a week for an hour, and give them dry fire progressions and coach them and all that. So there's a lot of different things that I do. But yeah, those are the areas that are easiest to get to me on.
Awesome, man. Well, it was an honor having you on the show, and great conversation. I really appreciate it, man. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for this episode with Mike Pannone. If this episode resonated with you, be sure and let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Aimpoint's Taking Aim podcast. See you next time.